5 o'clock. Call the meeting of the Health and Human Services Board to order at the St. Croix Government Center, room 1400. Roll call.
Mike Barkalow.
Present.
Kathleen Finley.
Present.
Kathy Leaf.
Present.
Lisa Lynn.
Present.
Deb Lindeman.
Present.
Greg Telejohn.
Present.
Julie Smith.
Is excused.
We have a quorum. We got feedback. Yeah. Any public comment? Seeing none, hearing none? What?
Approval of the minutes.
Oh, gee, I always forget that one. I don't know why. Minutes were in the packet. Any corrections or additions or comments? Then they'll stand approved as presented in the packet. Now public comment. No, seeing no public comment, we'll get on to business. Financial report for September 2025.
Good evening. So we have our financials, let's see, right here. So pretty much everything is trending the way it has been all year. Just a couple of things probably I'll talk about in behavioral health, and again that just goes kind of directly to some of the changes that we've made and talked about at the committee of the whole the other day. This mental health revenues, this is significantly higher than budget. A lot of that is the Winnebago money that we've collected back from some of our placements there. And as we've talked about, our Winnebago placements have been higher than usual. And that's showing up in our purchase services. And that line's right here. So, and this is a combination, both Trempealeau and Winnebago that are over budget. A lot of these reds over here, this was grant funding that came through after we had done the budget last year. So these all had grant money that supplemented or offset then these expenses that we purchased throughout the year. CCS, as we talked about, they are, their census is down. They've been a little more conservative in some of their purchase services. So that revenue here is about $400,000 less than it was last year at this time. You'll see the purchase services are down by that exact same amount. So the staffing's the same, the case management's the same, the workload. Staff are probably providing more services themselves because they can do those individual skills and some of those other things along with their case management. But yeah, that is a fully funded program, so that'll all come through in the end. Children's services, our purchase services, are below what they were last year at the same time, which is a really good trend. And looking through those purchase services, it's in child protection, it's also in youth justice, it's in our CLTS, and that was some changes in CLTS to the program that we're not able to pass through those funds. Those contractors have to bill directly to Forward Health themselves instead of through us. The one area that is over budget was in birth to 3, and again, that was a direct result of contracted services being higher that we requested positions in that area of birth to 3. Within the health campus, they are again over where they were last year at this time. The healthcare campus as a whole is showing a positive balance. We do not yet have any depreciation showing up, so it just depends when finance decides to start running those numbers, but near the end of the year here, that depreciation expense will start showing up. So they'll probably be pretty close to even once that's in there. The nursing home is showing positive. Kitty Roads, we have 5 residents in there, so you'll see that institutional care revenue is finally coming through. It will probably take them a couple months before they start showing a positive balance, so we're hopeful for next year that we're gonna see them also being in positive. And then Orchard View is almost positive. Again, they had to absorb this transfer to debt, so it kind of has taken them the whole year to cover that balance. So any questions for me on the finances?
Don't hear any.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Overview, this is sequential intercept model and mapping report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Telejohn has asked me to go through this report page by page and explain it in detail. I won't. Yeah. Also, everything in behavioral health has to have a fancy clinical sounding name. So sequential intercept model, though, is a term, just to give you just a real quick basis for why we use this model for this report. Back in 2022, there was a group of us from Wisconsin that was invited to a New England summit on, it was the state court's response to mental illness, and it was an effort to look at the state courts, or court system in the country really, and see how we could divert people away from criminal justice kinds of outcomes and towards care and support for behavioral health conditions. So that was the overall conference purpose, and as a part of that, though, there was a lot of discussion around the sequential intercept model, which are those points within the continuum of the criminal justice system where interventions can divert people away from jail or criminal charges and divert them into care and treatment, people with substance use disorders, mental health disorders. So that's where I became more familiar with the SIM model. And then from that New England conference, then we had a statewide conference. Chief Justice Ziegler, at the time Chief Justice, called together a state conference where there were representatives from every county in Wisconsin, including St. Croix County, law enforcement, judicial representation, and behavioral health leadership. And we had a more fine-tuned discussion about how to apply those concepts to the state of Wisconsin. And then from there, we took it to the county level and began discussing this at the Criminal Justice Collaborating Council, CJCC Behavioral Health Subcommittee. Dr. Ghali from Justice Support Services, myself, Ellie Clausen, the health officer, Shar, and others had discussions after that from 2023 about how to address this population that's filling up our jails, that's getting involved in the criminal justice system. How do we better address their behavioral health needs and divert them away from the criminal justice system? The SIM model, or sequential intercept model, seemed like a good framework to use for doing that, or for planning a strategy around that. So Phil Ghali, back in November of last year, applied to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, for facilitators to come from SAMHSA to our county and offer this workshop on mapping out what this SIM model would look like in St. Croix County. And that involved representatives from law enforcement, behavioral health, other community organizations, domestic violence. Judge Waterman provided an opening statement. Supervisor Leaf and Chair Telejohn and Julie Smith, I believe, was also part of that. I don't know if I'm leaving others out, but it was about 40 people that were invited to this day-and-a-half workshop here, right here in the Government Center. What we did was we gathered all of the resources in St. Croix County that could potentially work with a strategy around this effort, again, from different branches of government and from the community, and we mapped out everything that we could think of related to resources, where the gaps were, and then potential recommendations for how we could adapt our system to better address people coming into the criminal justice system with behavioral health disorders. So there is a list in this report. I wanted to expose you to the report that we'll be using as a foundation going forward in the CJCC to help us devise a realistic strategy for how to adapt what we're doing now to accomplish that goal of preventing people from ending up in jail or in the criminal justice system who really would benefit more from treatment than they would from being incarcerated. All of the effort that went into this is obvious, I think, in looking at the report. You can see the various people involved and the input that they gave and where the gaps are, funding, and all of those things that play into this. But what we'll do next is in the CJCC Behavioral Health Subcommittee, we'll start to do the work of narrowing this down to a set of what we find to be anyway reasonable kinds of recommendations to make to the full CJCC board and work from that. So it's going to require a lot more effort, but this whole project really is the culmination of a few years of consideration and a thoughtful approach to the problem, and this gives us a more, I think, clear path forward in terms of how we go about it. And I have to give credit to Phil Golly, who organized, first of all, he got these facilitators to accept an application to be technical assistants, help us with technical assistance here in the county, and he also organized the whole day-and-a-half event. So he did all of that work. But the topic itself has been one of discussion for quite a while now. Shar was there, so if she had, if I left stuff out that's important, you can fill in the gaps on that.
When we had our last behavioral health CJCC, we didn't have a quorum, so we weren't able to talk at length, but we talked briefly about how just having that many people from so many different areas was pretty cool. Like, everyone was there and very invested in it. We found that we probably reiterated that we all have the same goal, and so it was just a nice way to start the conversation. This document is wonderful at putting it all together. They have some recommendations that we're not going to be able to duplicate what Dade County does, and we're not going to be able to duplicate what's happening in Colorado or some of the other places, but we can take the things that we can do. And we actually have some of those things already going, so it kind of reinforces that some of the stuff we have, like our co-responders, are essential, and how can we enhance it and maybe pivot maybe a little bit how we do it to maximize our success in the area. So I'm very excited about having this as our starting point, and all of the folks that were in that room that are committed to be able to bring some of this to fruition.
So I don't know if you have any questions at this point, but I wanted to familiarize you with the report itself as it might show up later in other committees, boards, or in some other form, and then you would have a frame of reference for what we were talking about. If you have input or ideas that you'd like to share with us, of course, we welcome that as well.
I thought it was most interesting to see that map the flow chart you just rolled by, and so all the resources that we do have. It was most interesting participating in that day-and-a-half project too, and the breakout sessions with the different groups. Some really good discussions. So those arrows look complicated, but they really, you can see. Most people don't know how complicated it is either. So.
And
any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
Chair Telejohn.
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
No, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to reiterate that this is an example of like how we're working more upstream, all the parties involved, meaning that we get to people at intercept zero, which is when we can make the most impact and it's most effective. I think the other cool thing, like you mentioned, Chair Telejohn, was just having everybody together and talking about the issues. And I know some things we've already started to do in the jail with Bill and release plans and kind of trying to do a little bit of a softer handoff upon release. So I'm excited for what's to come, and I'm assuming that you'll just keep us in the loop about work groups that we can participate in. If there's any way that we can support this project as a board, I'm sure we'd all be willing to do that.
Thank you. Deb?
I was just curious as to like, how many people do you think this would impact? I mean, what's the percentage of people that are, really come through the jails now that really have a mental health issue? Do you have any sense of what that is, or any local data about that?
So I'm glad you asked, because I forgot to also say part of this is we had talked about, we had a pending grant for that mental health person in the jail. So we will have a much better idea once we start screening specifically for serious mental illness and doing those assessments and hitting that assessment piece up front. We know that jails are the largest mental health institutions that we have. We just haven't been able to address or really identify those. We know those who kind of rise to the top, but I couldn't even guess. I mean, a lot, most.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you. Next is overview accelerated resolution therapy, ART.
Gonna get the mouse? Got it. Good evening, board members. I'll start introductions. My name is James Tabbitt. I'm an HHS supervisor, specifically working with the CCS program. Been with the county for about eight and a half years. And also for the last 2.5 years, I've been a qualified treatment trainee, which means that I finished my master's degree program, and besides my full-time job, is there better? Does that sound okay? How about now? A little better. I've been doing therapy part-time in the clinic, in which I'll wrap up my hours here at the end of the month, so I'm excited for that. I was invited to talk about a couple different things we have going on in the clinic, and there's some other exciting things I think that's relevant to the report that you guys just got some information about. Two things are accelerated resolution therapy, or ART, or art therapy. You'll hear both terms. The founder would like it to be called art, but it gets confusing with literal art therapy with painting. And so most experienced therapists will use ART. Second is sensation awareness focused technique, which is using some of those skills for non-clinical staff. And I have an interest in that because I'm running into some grants I'm working on. I'll give you the brief overview. ART has been around since around 2008. The founder, Leni Rosenzweig, she was actually EMDR trained. Most people are more familiar with EMDR, which is using rapid eye movement in order to desensitize traumatic events. ART, we feel, is faster, quicker, and less stress on staff, and I'll explain why. Leni was actually trained in EMDR and then shared that she had a better approach. And I'll just keep going. Right there. She thought she could do what they were doing better, and they told her you can't call it EMDR, and so she created her own program called ART. Most of the research is out of the University of South Florida. First working with veterans, some of the VAs down there, working with PTSD. That's what ART is most known for, is the effectiveness working and treating with serious and persistent PTSD. I don't need the slides. Yeah, that's fine. Some of the original research, as it notes on there, that $1 million head-to-head training, this slide is from ART historically. That study was complete. Unfortunately, there were some issues with it, so it's not usable data. It was good, it just didn't work out the way they wanted to. I'm just going to share a little bit about some basics about trauma in the brain. So go to the next slide. When we experience trauma, it bypasses the frontal lobe, your logical part of your brain. Okay. And goes straight back to the amygdala, which is our emotional center. That is why we can reason that we shouldn't still be upset about things that happened years ago, but we still feel very strongly about it and can be easily triggered. ART can be effective. Similarly, EMDR, the goal is to try to desensitize you to that trauma over an extended period of time by repeated exposure. ART has you rewrite that trauma and is more effective. And what ART is really known for is it being effective with serious PTSD in 1 to 2 sessions, with an average of 3 to 5. Go to the next one. More information. That's the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight. That's what's triggered when a veteran hears a backfiring car or a firework that has them think they're back at war being attacked, and they will respond as though they're back there. And that's an emotional response. It bypasses our frontal lobe that knows it's just a firecracker, and that's the problem. The symptoms, that can be any kind of trauma too, not just PTSD. Next one. Whereas our parasympathetic nervous system, that calms us down. That's the part that lowers the heart rate, that slows down the sweating, and allows us to start processing and making different decisions. Lainey, these are her words. She likes to use the word parachute because it reminds her of the difference between the sympathetic system, which gets us worked up, and the parasympathetic, which calms us down. It is the belief that the eye movements, which we'll talk about in ART or bilateral stimulation, that triggers that parasympathetic system, and that's what helps calm people down when they're upset. And that will come into play when I talk about safety at the end of the slide. What makes ART different? Like I said, it's less stress on staff because staff don't need to go through every detail of the trauma that a client has. The client just needs to be able to imagine in their mind, to envision it, and they can still work on it without the staff having to go through and hear every single part of their trauma. That also means shorter session times and shorter treatment periods in general, and still be effective. It's very fast. Image and sensations can change naturally within 1 session. I'll share, how much time do I have? Good, good. Just wave me off. I'll share a recent example. I had a referral. I was actually one of the ALICE trainers, and during ALICE training, active shooter response training, one of our staff shared that a family member that had a recent loss, a family member had completed suicide, and want to know how soon can we get them into the clinic. One thing we're trying to do is to get people in the clinic as soon as possible, legally and safely and financially responsibly. And we were able to get them in quickly. And within a week of the incident, I was able to meet with the person who found their loved one who had completed suicide and had locked in their mind that image of what they had found. And within 1 session, it didn't completely alleviate it, but enough where she was able to function and go to work the next day. And so that's part of the appeal. And if you go to formal ART training, you'll get a lot of anecdotal evidence like that and examples. And I will share a couple as we go through as we have time. But that's one of them. And yeah, that client's going to graduate here as I wrap up my hours, so she's doing pretty darn good. And it's gone through a lot. 3 basic things. People ask, what do you need to do well in art? They're pretty simple. Technically. Traditional ART training involves watching a therapist's hand or a marker move back and forth in about this pace. To get bilateral stimulation, that's the eyes moving back and forth. The theory is that it's similar to REM eye movements during sleep, which during our sleep is when we naturally process our events or trauma of the day. And the idea is that ART, similar to EMDR, works that way to process in the moment immediately. So they need to be able to move their eyes. However, I've worked with a couple clients where they get dizzy or feel uncomfortable. And so we have the option, EMDR already created this for us. These are called TheraTappers. If you want to try them, you can. They just vibrate in your hand and they're hand controlled, and you can set the pace. Lainey would prefer, the founder would prefer hand movements because she feels eye movements are more effective. But anecdotal evidence is that it's just as effective if they can have a tapper going back and forth. The clinic used grant funding to train the entire BH staff, so every therapist is ART trained or advanced trained, and so are already putting this into play with some positive outcomes so far. They prefer the TheraTappers. For littles, we find that they get easily distracted and they won't destroy them, but they will put them in their mouth or whatever they're going to do with them. And so we did use some other grant funding to get these are wireless tappers. And our Rebecca Smith, one of our DBT therapists, she had the idea to get these wristbands so you can put them on kiddos' hands or kiddos' feet, and just as effective for processing. And you can control remotely with your phone, which is pretty cool. I use grant funding. We have 30 sets. We have enough for every therapist. I'm going to be training social workers in safety, and they'll be able to use those as well, which we'll talk about later. The second requirement is that the client needs to be able to hold a thought. A lot of clients will come and say, well, I don't have a creative imagination. I can't see a movie in my mind. If they can imagine an apple, they can do ART, right? And we can work on that if they need to get up to that. And a lot of people will say, like the person who had the loved one complete suicide, she doesn't want to imagine that, so it's not required. She just picked a certain scene, just an idea, and she's able to work off of that. The third is needs to be motivated to change. That's tricky, because some people aren't ready to change. Some people are really connected to their trauma and aren't ready to be done with it. And so there are things we can do in ART or traditional therapy to get them ready to be motivated to change. With those three basic components, it's pretty effective at any age. So in my practice in the last year, I've gone from age 6 to 72. Depends, varying results, but they at least can do the practice. Art uses scripts. It's a very scripted type therapy. Lainey, the founder, developed these very specific scripts for certain diagnoses and certain situations. And then when you go through advanced training, you get the freedom to kind of freestyle a little bit and to augment a little bit based on what your needs are. I threw the list out there. There's a basic script. That's just 101 basic ART where they imagine their scene. They then develop an alternative scene and you reinforce it over time and with immediate effects. And that works, that's if you consult an ART, that's your basic, they always say use basic first, you'll start there and go from there. A typical day is planning for the future. An example would be someone's got they got a boss they really don't like, but they still need to go to work. So we can't imagine the boss disappearing. However, we can prepare them for what they're going to do the next day, and they can adjust. The most common thing is to make the boss really, really small and really, really quiet, and what they like about work, really, really big and really, really loud, and it's pretty darn effective. Mischievous little liar, those are people that don't follow through on commitments. Essentially, it's similar to a kind of an angel and a devil on your shoulder, and it's really effective. Codependency issues, there's a script for that. Depression, one of the most common diagnoses, there's a script for that. Eating disorders, OCD, intrusive thoughts, I've used that a couple of times. I have a young man who just can't give you a short answer, he just continues to go. And so I can't show the full details of what's in the scripts, but part of it is you imagine the word repeat, and then you cut off the RE and make Pete, who's this person who helps you make better choices. And for that guy, Pete is a big, buff bodyguard that tells him to shut the F up. And it helps him. It's helping get a lot of trouble with his parents and with his family. So, and I will bring up Pete if he's talking too much in sessions. So it's effective. ADHD is a pretty popular script. It is effective. Dyslexia, I'll share an example about that. I work with a 60-year-old male. He's got a tremor. And so dyslexia, the script works well for handwriting, which if you see my handwriting, I need it. But this gentleman has a bad tremor in his right hand. And what he wants to do for coping skills is read books, but he can't hold the pages steady. And I had seen through some of the training videos examples of Lane using some of the scripts for people that have survived stroke or of different disabilities, and with some positive results. And so what I had him do, for example, I had him write a signature, and then we did just 20 minutes of this dyslexia script, and then he wrote it again. And it's not mind-blowing, but you can definitely tell the difference. I got permission from him to share with my bosses, so they've seen it. It's very exciting. For him, the most important part for him is his signature before he feels terrible and embarrassed about, so he tries to rush through it because it's embarrassing to write like that. And he felt more comfortable and more positive about himself the second time through. So that's a good example. Metaphorical moment. There's a really big, tough decision they can't make, right? And so there's a script that helps them make that decision by the end of the session. And I've used it a couple of times, people with relationships, substance use, different things, pain, chronic pain, and folks that best they're not on too many pain meds, it can be helpful with that. There's a script for stroke survival. Lainey herself is a survivor of stroke, and she, of course, that's what she does, she applied it to herself. And if you met her now, you probably would barely be able to notice that she has a difference. And I've been working with her for a couple of years, and so it's impressive what she's done to help herself. I had on the slide too, substance abuse. That's a pretty big question. Can I work with substance abuse? And absolutely. I've used it many times with my folks with substance use issues. It helps decrease cravings. It helps follow through on commitments. It helps prepare for possible triggers. I've had one younger female who, I won't say the town, there's a local town festival, and that's usually one of the times when she uses the most. And she prepared a scenario and had a specific plan for what she was going to do. She imagined succeeding in it. She had a plan to spend time with her family instead and to make commitments. And it wasn't me telling her what to do. She had it. She just had to develop that plan in session. So, any questions about ART before we move on to safety?
I don't know if it's a question. It's not a question, but I was, when you were treating PSD, I believe you said you can treat it within 1 to 5 sessions, and most commonly 3. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's one of their selling points. Specifically, single event trauma, major car accident. My family with the family member that completed suicide. If it's a single traumatic event that is continuing to affect them, I believe online you can watch one of the clips. There was a mail carrier who was mauled by a dog, horrifically mauled by a dog, and she could not go back to work. She lost her job for some period of time, and after I think it was just 1 or 2 sessions with Lainey, she was able to get back to work, and it was just rechanging it. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. It's not a magical wand, but it's pretty darn effective enough that the county felt, and I appreciate it, to pay for us to get trained using grant funds, so it didn't affect our budget too bad. So,
any other questions?
I'm really excited to hear about this because I've seen tremendous benefit for our patients. In fact, we're constantly looking for ART trained therapists to refer to because it has been so impactful above and beyond what we see with EMDR. And it really, I'm shocked when patients come back after a couple sessions, and I have just seen tremendous response. So it's an incredible resource and something that I really appreciate hearing about.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you. We still love our MDRs, just ART is just quicker, faster, and simpler. Let's move on to safety. Again, that sensation awareness focused technique. My interest in safety is that it's using the effective components of ART to decrease strong traumatic responses or intense stress using either eye movement or bilateral stimulation. And it's a training that can be provided to and complete and then provided to community members or family members by non-clinical staff. It's, I think you can go next slide. The advertisement. Alleviate negative physical sensation with no drugs, no hypnosis, minimize stress, reduce pain, calm heightened emotions, etc. Safe for adults and children. It's designed really for emergency response staff. It's designed for social workers who are in the field. It's designed for EMTs. It's designed for military. It's designed for anyone that has contact with people going through trauma. And the nice thing is that it's also effective on yourself. You can use it to calm yourself. My interest is teaching staff and my social workers that are out in the front lines dealing with people, or talked to 3 or 4 angry moms this week who have a stressful experience and need to decompress at the end of the day. It's effective with that. And the nice thing, it's really simple. And the only difference is they're not going fully into therapy. They won't go fully into a treatment script. They're really just going to help them in the moment. So, yeah, I think I kind of explained that. Go ahead. Professional, paraprofessionals, and parents. I have an interest in teaching parents. We work with a lot of children in CCS, and I work with a lot of children in therapy, and parents could use skills. I'm not blaming the parents, and there's an opportunity for parents to have more comfort and more skill to help their children going through difficult times. We get a lot of calls from frustrated parents asking us to fix the kid or asking us what to do. And what we know is if they give themselves time to calm down and get back in the DBT world with a wise mind, they can make clear, good decisions. They can make better parenting choices and or get ready for what's next. I know in CLTS and in CCS, we use a lot of respite, which is designed to really give kids and parents a break from each other. And the theory, what's supposed to happen is parents are then supposed to be working on themselves to get ready for a kid to come back. Unfortunately, sometimes parents just, rightfully so, take a break, and then the kid comes back to the same environment. We'd love to offer this to more parents so that they can be ready and more prepared for when the kids come back, because they will come back and they'll still have things to work on. So, go next one. Just wrapping up, all therapists in the HHS Integrated Clinic, or BH, are ART trained. Most are advanced trained. We have 1 in-house safety therapy, me. My interest in it, 1, it was free to get the training, and 2, I want to train my social workers in CCS, and I want to train as many staff as possible. So I'll be training 5 CCS staff this fall. And then I budgeted in our CST, Coordinated Service Teams grant, to train an additional 50 staff in 2026. We'll offer to CCS first, then Children's Services, and expand. And then depending on funding availability, I'll try to spread it as much as possible. The last thing about safety too, what I like is once a parent has that skill, they can offer it to their kid and they can teach it to their spouse. And once my social workers have it, they can teach it to the parents to help with the kids. And so it's kind of a gift that keeps giving. It's relatively cheap. It's about $100 a person for the training. And it's pretty simple to set up. I think that's it. Questions about safety?
Any questions? Go ahead.
So the safety then, is that a one-on-one thing that you do then? I mean, or do you do it with a whole group? Can you like relax them?
You can. The safety is meant to be in a group setting, so absolutely. Art is not designed to be for a group, but definitely ART. Definitely, yeah. If the group wanted to, you could put on some tappers. I could show you some basic stuff. ART, they have you sign a non-disclosure, so you're not supposed to give away their secret sauce, but I can share up until a certain point. But I've done that. When I did a mass training for CCS, I showed them everything but. And with the safety training, you have to register and then you have to sign a non-disclosure that you won't share their secret sauce. It's a timing and a repetition thing. And then it's make sure that not anyone is just trying to give this. However, that being said, the tappers themselves, just the tappers, just throwing them on will relax anybody. They'll take your mind off what's going on. They're pretty effective. My 7-year-old I shared, he's got OCD. You can't get him to track, but if I put the tappers on him, at least he can slow down enough that we can have a conversation. We can kind of crisis plan a little bit. But yes, it's designed to be for an entire group.
So is the safety scripted also? Because
Yep.
ART, you went through all the different scripts, so is the safety the same thing? You have different scripts for different
It'll be
situations?
one general script for the safety. Great question. That just kind of tells you how to talk them down, how to move. It's called moving sensations. So if they say, I'm really anxious because we were just in a car accident, you would say, for example, where do you feel that anxiety? And they might say in our shoulder. Chest and shoulder is pretty common for anxiety. Stomach sometimes, right? And then you'll do some of the bilateral stimulation, either with hand movements or with the tappers, and then you'll encourage them and direct them with the script to move that. And usually it'll help, and you do it till it helps. And once they've gone through that, they're already kind of calmed down. The parasympathetic system kicks in, and they're calmer, and they can make better decisions about what's next. So essentially, the same thing would happen if you just have them sit for a long time, but this is a little bit quicker, more active, and it helps parents feel that they can do something when kids are really worked up. You need their permission. You can't just force it on people, but as long as they're agreeable. I did mobile crisis for a few years in the county, and with people's permission, I can get calmed down. Like if they're willing to get help in the moment, and that's usually what they need to do, is calm down, and then they're out of the crisis. So that can help with hospitalizations and stuff like that. So my interest, I'll train as many staff as we can.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to thank you, James, for coming, first of all. James's enthusiasm around this particular therapeutic approach was obvious to me. He's a good clinician, and when he told me a little bit about this and how he saw the benefits of this applying to the work we do, I was all in. I still have to learn more about it, which I keep promising I'll do. But I haven't seen, as Dr. Finley pointed out, I haven't seen a therapeutic approach get this much attention in a long time. I know motivational interviewing was introduced when I was younger, and that was a big movement. But this seems like a more practical, pragmatic almost kind of way to address certainly trauma and other kinds of issues. I was just going to ask real quick, you mentioned some things that I think are obviously could be applied to the sequential intercept model generally. Can you just name like a few ways in which this sort of therapy or approach could benefit people, say, in the criminal justice world that might enter the criminal justice system, just because you mentioned that the SIM model had some relationship to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot, I've come from a corrections background as well. I think there's a lot of trauma history, right? At a minimum, some mental health diagnosis, right? Like Shara said, most of the people we find in the jail, especially repeatedly in the jail, have some kind of mental health or untreated things going on. And they feel stuck, and they're motivated sometimes to get out of jail or to get into what's next, or they want to change. And so I think ART could be helpful with them to, depending where they're at. If they are still really stuck in stinking thinking or criminal thinking, as we say sometimes, it can help move them to what do you really want in life, and can start to visualize what that looks like. They might just have this view. I've worked with people in corrections where their time out of prison that's vacation. They live, they're institutionalized. There is no life beyond that. ART could help them start to visualize what life could be like, right? What could some of the options be? It can help them. And then that if they have anxiety or depression or something's going on, it can treat them in the moment. The nice thing too is ART, it ends with, when I'm wrapping up with clients in ART, it ends with a little bit of kind of safety training. I teach them what they can do at home so they continue to use it after they leave. And so these are skills that people can use if they're in jail or in prison to kind of help process or handle the anxiety. And the bilateral stimulation for my littles, for my kids that can't sit still in class, or ADHD friends, it's embarrassing if they had to put these things on necessarily, but they can just do light tapping on their legs. EMDR teaches that too. I have one guy, he should sit on his hands because he breaks stuff, but he'll sit on his hands and just tap his legs a little bit. So they're just things you can do to purposely, in the moment, privately cope through whatever you're going through, and then usually helps you not make so many impulsive decisions. It's great for impulsivity. That's one of my clients. That's what she's in therapy for, is impulsivity with drugs and relationships. And so it can help her kind of slow things down. And so I could see in the jail, the prison, or people that are involved with the system. It can also help if they have distrust of the system, like the boss scenario. They can make their PO really, really small, but you still got to listen to them and make things they want to do bigger and bigger in their life. And they can take steps for that. And it can be, and again, the take-home skills are things they can use in between sessions. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
I think that the safety could be wonderful up in the jail, like to be able to train not only Bill and our new therapist that will be up there, but also law enforcement that's working in there, because just as parents, it gives them something that they could also do as well. So I think that would be great. I also want to validate this practice, because I too was trained, And I haven't done as many therapy sessions as James, but I have seen, first of all, when we got trained, we had to do it. And when you feel something, when you're like, whoa, that was really cool, to be able to, because you have to buy into it first. And you have to, you think that it's actually going to be helpful. But I too have found that with trauma in particular, it has been really successful. So I just want to validate that it isn't voodoo magic. It isn't any of that. It's just a lot of being able to rewire your brain and think differently about what's had happened. So.
Thanks. Yeah.
Dr. Finley?
Something else that I think is really exciting is how quick this can work. And again, it's not magic, right? But it can be really responsive for patients. But that helps with the access issues, right? So instead of spending years trying to sort through this in other therapy modalities, people can move through very quickly, which means that then the next person can get in for therapy. And the other thing is what you said about burnout. And one of our biggest concerns is helping to prevent burnout in that very hard work. And so I think just really exciting, and I'm really excited to hear that all of the integrated clinic staff are ART trained. I mean, it's just really, really great. I think a great use of resources to help with the access issues that we experience. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. That's it for business. Requests for future agenda items. Any requests for business future? No? Okay, any announcements? Bob always has something.
I always do. I wanted to mention that there was a sextortion event at St. Croix Central High School on the 8th of October, where two parents who lost children as a result of sextortion talked for about 2 hours. It was very impactful, and that's recorded, by the way, and I can share that link to that event. But that was put on primarily as a result of Rachel Johnson and Emily Anderson from our Children's Services Division that organized and got sponsors for that event. If you can watch the recording, it's kind of scary. So of how these people, in an organized way, target kids, and what the results can be. Kids were taking their own lives after 30 minutes of being engaged by these people. So it's definitely impactful. I wanted to also mention that the Knights of Columbus in New Richmond awarded two $500 donations, one to the Birth to Three program and one to our ADRC. So thank you to them. And our Birth to Three division also received a 100% compliance audit from the state, which is unheard of. I wanted to give them credit for that. And the last thing I will mention is that our Medicare enrollment began today, goes through December 7th. We experienced some problems with the system today that prevented us from enrolling some people during their appointment times. The system was working as of 4 o'clock today, but I just wanted to mention that if the public experiences any delays or complications, it's likely a result of that Medicare system not working for us. And we're doing our best to, of course, navigate that, but there's not much we can do about it if it isn't working. So we're trying to work with the state and find out why that's happening. And then the last thing I'll say is that with the government shut down, there's some concerns around programs that might be running out of funds, primarily the Women, Infants, and Children program and SNAP program. Got a message from the state yesterday confirming that there was adequate funding through the end of October. After that's a big question mark, and we don't know yet what the answer to the questions will be after October. I'll keep you informed as we go.
Any other announcements? Hearing none, the date of our next meeting is scheduled for November 19th. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.